I think
Mm.
the first place to start is what do you actually want? What kind of business do you actually want to run? Because the vast majority of people that I end up talking to, when I ask them the question, they realize that the business that they're running is the business that they thought they needed to run to make money versus the business that they actually want to run. If we break this down to a first principle level, you have expertise,
Hmm.
right? You
Yeah.
have some sort of skill, knowledge, expertise that you're exchanging with the market, and the model determines how that exchange takes place. So the done for you model is one way to exchange that value with the marketplace.
Yep.
And people gravitate towards that because it offers the highest level of certainty because you're doing all the work. So it reduces the risk for them.
Yes.
You can charge more and you can still get an easy yes because they're not really doing any of the work. That's not the only way you have to exchange value with the market. Team of 14 to me sounds not fun, especially if
Yeah.
you said you wanted to surf and hang out and not work like crazy. That because every model carries a certain weight. That's like energetic weight, right?
Mm.
It's a time weight. It's like team meetings on the calendar,
Correct.
the weight of payroll and
Slack messages. Yeah.
practices, right?
Payroll. Yeah, you're right. Mm.
The the core thing that I'm trying to get across is that you can make that kind of money many different ways. So
Mm.
we might as well pick the way that feels best for you. So there's macro and micro because it's a fractal. So the macro level, it's the DIY, do it yourself, done with you, done for you,
Yeah.
is like one of the dimensions of the architecture. So you can say, okay, hypothetically, let's say you're like, hey, actually, if I can make this money without a big team, where because I'm delivering something that's done with you, it offers more leverage. And I'd rather do that and make the same amount of money with a lot less overhead and staff and a lot more profit. That sounds great. Or maybe one of the people in the accelerator, he does about 50K a month, and we've been having the same conversation.
Mm.
What's the business you actually want, right? Not the one you think you need to run to make the money you want, but what's the business you actually want? And what we ended up, like finally after weeks, I got an answer from which was honestly, if I could just sell courses and make 30K a month, and most of that was profit, and I spend the rest of my time just doing whatever I want. That's what I want. They're like, okay,
Mm.
great. That's a start. Now we can actually talk about the real thing. So that's the macro, right? And then
Yeah.
within each one, there's still more choices because we can do done for you in many different ways. We can do it yourself in many different ways. So it's a matrix of matrixed options. It sounds complicated, but it's actually not. So we start with the
Mm.
highest level. Like, what's the mode that you want to deliver value? Is it, do you want to do it for them? Do you want to teach them how to do it? Or is it super do it yourself? And then within that, how do we construct the thing so it really works for you versus something that you're just doing as a means to an end? Let's caveat all this by saying I know very little about your business, so I'm going to make
That's
big
fine, man.
big assumptions and leaps. Hopefully that speeds up the process of figuring something out that feels good for you. Okay, so radical visioning, right? So let's say 3 months from now, this is what the business looks like. You just have team doing delivery for done for you, maybe one salesperson, but most of our acquisition efforts is not designed to feed the done for you. It's
Yeah.
actually designed to feed a done with you. And maybe eventually, maybe in a year, we actually have a full-fledged do-it-yourself side of it as well. We would start with done with you because it's also a different market with some overlap, right? The people
Mm.
that's important to understand. And the reason why we would eventually also cover the do-it-yourself market is not because we're thinking about it in terms of ascension, though there will be some ascension, it's because we're covering a bigger market surface area. The people who consume free stuff, they're typically not the people who, there's some overlap across all of these,
Mm.
but people who pay $10, they are not generally the ones who pay 1,000 or 10,000 and so on.
Yeah.
So we understand intuitively that more access, more ease, more done for you, whatever, they pay more. But we scale this thing with a scalable thing, right? Done for you is not scalable. And this is what happens to most people who run agencies. They hate their
Yeah.
job and then they burn it down because it's just not, people don't understand that it's very hard to scale something that's not inherently scalable. So to
Yeah.
scale the thing, we create a more scalable solution in the business that can handle, let's say, like in my model, the done with you layer can handle like about 100 people. Things start to break. And we can even tier things so it can handle more than that. But because we've tiered it, it can stretch to like maybe 150, 160 people. But
Yeah.
that's still pretty compelling, right? Like for me, for example, my done with you layer, the accelerator, if I have 70 people there, that's $1 million a year. And that's excluding all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't need big numbers to make this work. And so
Yeah.
because we're selling a done with you thing, we can sell it in a way that's more scalable. Of course, we talked about how delivery is a lot more scalable because of the way we structure the done with you. And I can show you how
Mm-hmm.
my stuff works so you can get an idea. But delivery becomes scalable, but acquisition also becomes scalable. And we don't use sales calls for that. We have a way of selling and building trust and relationship and context with asynchronously without calls. And the cool thing is, some of those people, you can put an offer in front of them and say, hey, do you want me to just do this for you? I have a team that specializes in this. And then you pick your clients. You pick the best ones, because another huge fuck up that agency people make is that they pick shitty clients because they have to take what they can get.
Mm.
And shitty clients will destroy an agency business. So
Mm.
my like my two-word success criteria for running an agency business is pick winners. Because if you pick winners, they'll stay longer, they'll have fewer headaches, it'll
Mm.
be less bullshit. So my goal would be, how do we, you know, fire the shittier clients and have 10 to 12 winners who are all paying
Mm.
you whatever, a few, let's say 2, 3 grand a month. I don't know how much you charge right now, but
Yeah.
like on average, that's totally doable. And then you're pulling another, we don't need big numbers again, because this is so much more scalable that the done with you layer can have
Yeah.
20, 30, 40 people.
Yeah.
And that produces recurring revenue as well, but that also produces you perfect clients for your, done for you layer. And then
Yeah.
take a piece of that and we put it in the front, and we start with that as a do-it-yourself course. And that's how we get flow through the whole thing. A piece of the done with you becomes the do-it-yourself. It helps us generate leads, customers, and clients because we have a system that does that.
Mm.
And then that helps us turn those customers into clients. That's the done.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can turn those done with you clients, a certain number of them, into done for you
Makes
clients,
sense.
maximizes LTV. So in a nutshell, that's what I would do. So the goal
Yeah.
is, we try to create as many customers as possible, because
Yeah.
customers are more valuable than leads. And we give people plenty of opportunities to become customers. And what that does is it allows people to actually put skin in the game and receive value.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like our buyer journeys are super interesting. Some people, they'll see that ad for the automated customer engine.
Yeah.
They'll go through that 20-minute video that's free. They'll buy the product. They will watch the product immediately or that day. and they'll, message me and they'll say, this just blew my mind. What else do you have? Or how can I work with you? But some people super short. Other people, they'll buy one product and then they'll buy another product, they'll buy another product, and then eventually they'll be like, I just need to work with this guy. To get it right, you want to build it backwards. If you start with the done for you, like the front end stuff, it's you have a much lower chance of working. We would build the done with you as you go. So you don't need to create the whole thing and then sell it. We'd create the offer for the done with you,
Yeah.
and we're gonna launch this thing and try to get people in. And then a week later, we host the first workshop. So you instantiate the curriculum for the done with you thing as you go. So
Okay.
you build it as you go, and eventually you'll end up with a bunch of content that you can choose to sell as the do-it-yourself. You want to build in the market. You don't want to build in isolation. We would create the offer, right? In a
Yep.
certain style. You went through the offer architecture training, right? So we would create a dynamic offer to sell the done with you. At
Yep.
this point, nothing exists, right?
Yep.
And we wouldn't be using the traditional way to sell it, as in salespeople and sales calls and all that. You can, if you want, that increases certainty and speed, but it's not necessary. Our goal will be to validate that done with you tier without sales calls. Even if we start with sales calls, we'd want at least 3 sales that come from just the dynamic offer that don't require a sales call,
Okay.
right? And so let's say you got in the initial, whatever, founding member or beta round, or whatever you want to call it. Let's say you get 5 people in, right? And most people with their existing list and network, they can pull out a few people. Even 3 people, even 2 people is great, because we just need someone to say yes so we can start the thing.
Yep.
And then the training you would create as you go in real time, right?
Okay.
And so let's say the kickoff date is, let's say, a week from today. And then you host the first call. Maybe that's just getting, you know, connected to people, understanding where they're at, what they're struggling with, getting the group together. And then the next week is the first workshop. And that's where you deliver the first piece of value in terms of the mechanism, right? Because
Okay.
we're putting a mechanism, on the board, saying that, hey, I've created this thing. This is going to help you go from here to here. So
Mm-hmm.
as we host those, we'll also sell tickets to that, to the list. So people can experience the value of the done for you in fractional pieces as well,
Mm.
right? And then eventually we pick one of those modules or components or workshop, whatever you want to call it. Hey, this thing people buy. And then once they buy, they also, you know, express interest and join the done with you layer.
Okay.
That's when we would build the front end. Building the front end is actually the last step,
Okay. I get
because
that. Yeah.
we want the data and the market to tell us what's the best front end to lead to this done with you core offer. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, we're just guessing. And if we try to, short circuit the process, it takes way longer, because we'll put something out, it won't work, and why is it not working? Then we're attached to the thing. So my bias is, what's the simplest, most efficient way to do it with the least amount of variables and the least amount of guessing? And that typically ends up also being the fastest way to do it. So I'm really pushing the limits on how simple and efficient we can make these things. So as soon as something requires me to hire someone or outsource something, then I have to look at the model and say, okay, how do I adjust the model? Because it's all values driven.
Yeah.
So one value is, I don't want to pack calendar. Another value is, I don't want a team. I want to manage people. I've done it. I've had teams ranging from like 10 to 200 people.
Right.
I'm exceptional at it. I just don't want to do it because I know myself, and I look, honestly, I've designed this business to keep me in flow and maximum turn on as
Yeah.
much of the time as possible. I don't sell much,
Hmm.
but most of my time is spent serving, which energizes me. Whole model is built for retention and LTV
Hmm.
because, and my churn is ridiculously low. I'm gonna say something, maybe this will land with you, but if you build your business based on babysitting people, you're fucking yourself up because those are the shittiest clients,
Yeah.
and it's going to be the most thankless job you'll ever give yourself.
Wow.
You've
Yeah.
architected codependency in your entire business. There's the way I've designed this model, it's actually quite deeply spiritual as well. It's not just the mechanical, like this is how we do things, and because those things don't lead to the experience that we want. Like this is how chill this business feels to run, how good it feels to run is unbelievable. And in many ways, we're doing something very different than what most people are doing. I'm rooting for you. Listen, you've done the hardest part of the whole thing. So let's try this. Let's try to make it lighter. So not so heavy. Let's stack some cash. Let's get some sales. Let's validate a slightly more light way of doing things. And then we can figure out, what makes sense in terms of, because relying on a $2,000 book call is, pretty shitty from my perspective. And paying 20% to your salesperson is also fucking painful. That's why I said long term, we just need a better model for you. Keep me posted how it goes.